Good morning, y'all. David Atkins, target individual. Today I got some more stuff from James Marino. Um, and this is his article, and it's on and it's also actually MK Ultra experiments, non-consensual experiments started in 1930 in America, and I will prove that, and I'm going to go into history of that and tell dates and times of different stuff. But first, I'm going to read a letter that Judge Stanley Sporking Crimes Against Americans. Okay. But first, and this is very interesting. You want to stay tuned. Okay, but first, I'm going to read a Bible, and like I said, every time, if you don't believe in the Bible, that's okay. I love you just the same. And I'm getting hit right now, so that's why I don't have my direct energy sweater on because it's way too hot right now. And I have this, but I'm waiting because it's still frozen. It's still frozen, so I'm waiting on it to thaw out so I can put it over my head. And anyway, so I came up, like I said, if you're not a believer, you can just pass on straight to the information. All right, here's a verse. I always do a Bible verse before I start. And this comes from James 1:12 through 17. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desire and enticed. Then when desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Okay, so this should be ready in a minute, this towel. See, they're frozen hard when you put water on them, but it feels so good when they're finally able to unfold. Okay, the fact that a federal judge, Judge Stanley Sporking's Crimes Against America, and this is an article that I'm reading by James Marino, and then I'm going to go into history starting in 1931 where non-consensual experimentation was going on. The fact that a federal judge with a history of perverting the criminal justice system in order to aid and abet crimes committed by the U.S. Intelligence Committee for former Judge Stanley Sporking would be chosen to preside over the most important lawsuit against the U.S. federal government in American history, John St. Clair Akwei versus the NSA, only to quickly dismiss the lawsuit under the claim that it's frivolous, a dubious and convenient claim for both Sporking and the NSA. Only serves as further proof that Akwei versus NSA should have been tried before a jury, and the information contained within the Nexus article regarding the contents of Akwei versus NSA should have been offered into evidence during this trial. Instead, John Akwei's lawsuit was conveniently ignored by the U.S. judicial system as well as the media system in the United States, even though there are quite literally thousands of people who've read the contents of Akwei versus NSA and become more familiar with his allegations regarding the domestic spy programs, including its signals intelligence EMF scanning network. Moreover, no matter how much the government attempts to deny that the American people are the unwilling subjects of covert brain fingerprinting program, the fact is there's no way thousands of Americans who have all reported to being subject to satellite tracking systems while having their brains remotely accessed could be doing so without having first been targeted by some form of brain fingerprinted system, which the intelligence community is using to identify and remotely track them. Organizations like the FBI and DHS claim to have information on target individuals. Hold on. It slipped out of my which they illegally circulate under the Patriot Act and yet are never forced to identify how this information is obtained, much less how legitimate it is. What these intel organizations are doing has become an outright threat to all American citizens because their organizations have destroyed the United States Bill of Rights through their illegal use of classified brain scanning technology, which is deployed via signals intelligence spy satellites. The fact that these agents are using coercive tactics to control the families and friends of these targeted individuals offer further proof the government are involved in a major cover-up regarding illegal and domestic spy operations, as well as the classified programs which involve the use of exotic warfare on these citizens. This following was sourced from an internet message board created by targets of non-consensual human experimentation and organized stalking crimes who live in Australia, just one of the NATO countries whose government is perpetrating these crimes against its own citizens. The United States is another, and citizens from all countries belonging to NATO have reported these crimes taking place. Okay, this is a brief history of secret human experimentations on involuntary or uninformed in subjects. 1931, Dr. Cornelius Roth, under auspices of Rockefeller Institute for Medical Investigation infects human subjects with cancer cells. He later established the U.S. Army Biological Warfare facilities in Maryland, Utah, and Panama, and is named to the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. While there, he begins a series of radiation exposure experiments on soldiers and civilian hospital patients. 1932, the Tuskegee syphilis study begins. 200 black men diagnosed with syphilis are never told of their illness and are denied treatment and instead are used as human guinea pigs in order to follow progression symptoms of disease. They all subsequently died of syphilis. Their families never told that they could have been treated. 1940, 400 prisoners in Chicago are infected with malaria and under study the effects of new and experimental drugs to combat the disease. Nazi doctors later on trial at Nuremberg cite this American study to defend their own actions during the Holocaust. In 1946, patients in Virginia hospitals are used as guinea pigs for medical experiments. To allay suspicions, the order is given to change the word experiments to investigations or observations whenever they're reporting a medical study performed in one of the nation's veterans' hospital. 1947, Colonel E. Kirkpatrick, or U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, issues a secret document. Document 07075-001, January 8, 1947, stating that the agency will begin administering intravenous doses of radioactive substance to human subjects. 1947, CIA begins a study of LSD as a potential weapon for use by American intelligence. Human subjects, both civilian and military, are used with and without. Wow, man, they keep. Okay. With and without their knowledge. 1947, the Navy conducted the first post-war mind control program, Project Chapter, which continued the drug experiments. Decades later, journalists and investigators still haven't uncovered much information about this project, or indeed about any of the military's other excursions into this field. We know that the Army eventually founded Operations Third Chance and Derby Hat. Other projects' names remain mysterious, though existence of these programs is unquestionable. Sorry, finally got unfrozen enough where I could put it on my head. 1950, Department of Defense begins plans to detonate nuclear weapons in desert areas and monitor downwind residents for medical problems and mortality rates. 1950, again, in an experiment to determine how susceptible an American city would be to biological attack, U.S. Navy sprays a cloud of bacteria from ships over San Francisco. Monitoring devices are situated through the city to test extent of infection. Many residents became ill with pneumonia-like symptoms. 1950, Project Bluebird was approved by the CIA director, Roscoe Helicopter, and he approved also use of unvouchered funds to pay for sensitive areas. This began CIA's first structured behavior control program. Their goals consisted of controlling the individual to the point where he would do a bidding against his will, even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. Some of their experimental subjects included North Korean prisoners of war and suspected double agents. 1951, Project Blueberry was renamed Project Artichoke. The CIA director approved a liaison with the Army and Navy who were interested in finding the truth drug. Another liaison was formed with the Air Force who wanted to study interrogation techniques. Some of Project Artichoke's experimental subjects included suspected agents, suspected double agents, people who had a known reason for deception, American college students, supposedly for more benign testing, and foreigners, since the CIA was more likely to try certain procedures out on them rather than American citizens. Terminal or to-the-death experiments were usually carried out in other countries. Control methods used on two agents involved two narco-hypnosis drugs. Drug and hypnosis. The subjects were hypnotically regressed and made to relive past experiments. Post-hypnotic suggestions were given to induce total amnesia of their interrogations. The CIA called this experiment very successful. Maybe that'll help for now. The 1951 Department of Defense begins open-air tests using disease-producing bacteria viruses. Tests last through 1969. Concerns exist that people in surrounding areas have been exposed. 1951, Project Chatter, a highly classified Navy program to search for a truth drug, began. They were looking for ways to make someone talk fast in the event of security emergency. These experiments used barbiturates, amphetamines, and heroin. The drugs were supplied by the Bureau of Narcotics and pharmaceutical companies. Subjects were mostly students. 1953, Project Chatter was abandoned. 1952, Project Castigate began when the Navy and the CIA partnered to test a secret potion consisting of a depressant, stimulant, active ingredient in marijuana. The drugs were administered over a 3-day period in an experiment in Germany at a CIA military installation. Experimental subjects included one known double agent, one suspected double agent, and 3 defectors. Project Castigate was considered a failure. 1952, MK Naomi, standing for mind control. TSS's agreement with Special Operations Division of Biological Research Center at Fort Derrick, Maryland. SOD's job was to produce germ weapons for the CIA's use. 1953, CIA initiates Project MK Ultra. This is an 11-year research program designed to produce and test drugs and biological agents that would be used for mind control and behavior modification. 6 of its sub-projects involved testing agents on unwilling human beings. MK Ultra focused on drugs, specifically LSD. The CIA wanted to use LSD as a weapon. The CIA studied hundreds of drugs besides LSD as well as experimenting with radiation, electroshock, psychology, sociology, anthropology, psychiatry, harassment substances, and paramilitary devices in the military. As subjects of the experiment, the CIA used many hospital patients. Volunteers, mostly students, inmates who were usually paid for their participation with more drugs, and eventually anyone they could get without their consent. The CIA scientists even engaged in misting and spraying unwilling American citizens as they walked down busy city streets. Later, they would study how to manipulate genes and develop compounds to stimulate heart attack and stroke. 1953, U.S. military releases clouds of zinc cadmium sulfide over Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Fort Wayne, and the Monocacy River in Maryland, and Leesburg, Virginia, with intent to determine how efficiently they could disperse chemical agents. 1953, Joint Army, NA, and Navy CIA experiments are conducted which tens of thousands of people in New York and San Francisco are exposed to the airborne germs Serratia marcinis and Bacillus glaucii. 1955, the CIA, in an experiment to test its ability to infect human population with biological agents, released a bacteria withdrawn from the Army's biological warfare over an arsenal over Tampa Bay, Florida. Army Chemical Corps continues LSD research in 1955, studying its potential to use as a chemical incapacitating agent. More than 1,000 Americans participated in the test to continue until 1958. 1956, U.S. military releases mosquitoes infected with yellow fever over Savannah, Georgia, and Avon Park, Florida. Following each test, the Army agents posing as public health officials test victims for effects. 1965, Project CIA and Department of Defense began Project MK Search, a program to develop capacity to manipulate human behavior through mind-altering drugs. 1965, prisoners at Holmesburg State Prison in Philadelphia are subject to dioxin, the highly toxic chemical component of Agent Orange used in Vietnam. These men are later studied for development of cancer. This indicates that Agent Orange had been a suspected carcinogen all along. 1966, CIA initiates Project MK Often to test toxicological effects of certain drugs on human animals. 1966, U.S. Army dispenses Bacillus subtilis variant Niger through New York City subway system. More than 1 million civilians are exposed when Army scientists drop light bulbs filled with bacteria onto the ventilation grates. 1967, CIA and DoD implement Project MK successor to MK Ultra to maintain, stockpile, and test biological chemical weapons. 1968, CIA experiments with possibility of poisoning drinking water by injecting chemicals into water supply of the FDA in Washington, D.C. 1969, Robert McMahon, Department of DoD, requests Congress $10 million to develop within 5 to 10 years a synthetic biological agent which no natural immunity exists. 1970, funding for the synthetic biological agent is obtained under H.R. 15090. This project, under supervision of the CIA, is carried out by Special Operations Division at Fort Detrick, the Army's top secret biological weapons facility. Speculation is raised that a molecular biology techniques are used to produce AIDS-like retroviruses. 1970, United States intensifies development of ethnic weapons. Military Review, November 1970. This is the magazine they're quoting. Designed to selectively target and eliminate specific ethnic groups who are susceptible due to genetic differences and variations in DNA. 1975, the virus section of Fort Detrick Center for Biological Warfare is renamed the Fort Friedrich Cancer Center facilities and placed under supervision of the National Cancer Institute. It is here the U.S. Navy initiates a special virus program. It is initiated purposely developed cancer-causing viruses. It is also here that retrovirologists isolate a virus to which no immunity exists. It's later named HTLV, human T-cell leukemia virus. 1977, Senate hearings on health. Scientific research confirmed that 239 populated areas had been contaminated with biological agents between 1949 and 1969. Some of the areas included San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Key West, Panama City, Minneapolis, and St. Louis. 1978, experimental hepatitis B vaccine trials conducted by CDC began in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Ads for research subjects specifically asked for promiscuous homosexual men. 1981, first cases of AIDS are confirmed in homosexual men in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, triggering speculation that AIDS may have been introduced via the hepatitis B vaccine. 1985, according to Journal Science magazine, 227 2:173-177. That's the name. That's the episode of the magazine. HTLV and VISNA, a fatal sheep virus, are very similar, indicating a close taxonomic and evolutionary relationship. 1986, according to proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, 83:4007-4011, HIV and VISNA are highly similar and shares all structural elements except small segment nearly identical to HTLV. This leads speculation that HTLV and VISNA may have been linked to produce a new retrovirus which no natural immunity exists. 1986, a report to Congress reveals U.S. government's current generation of biological agents includes modified viruses, naturally occurring toxins, and agents altered through genetic engineering to change immunological character and prevent treatment by existing vaccines. 1987, Department of Defense admits that despite treaty banning research and development of biological agents, it continues operating research facilities at 120 facilities and universities around the nation. More than 1,500 6-month-old Black and Hispanic babies in 1990 in Los Angeles are given experimental measles vaccine licensed for the United States. CDC later admits parents were never informed that the vaccine being injected to their children was experimental. 1994, with a technique called gene tracking, Dr. Garth Nicholson and MD Anderson Cancer Center at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, discovers that many returning Desert Storm veterans are infected with an altered strain of Mycoplasma incognitus, a microbe commonly used in biological weapon production. Incorporated into its molecular structure is 40% of the HIV protein code, indicating it had been man-made. 1994, Senator John D. Rockefeller issues a report revealing that for at least 50 years, the DoD used hundreds of thousands of military personnel in human experiments for intentional exposure to dangerous substances. Material included mustard, nerve gas, ionizing radiation, psychochemicals, hallucinations, and drugs used during the Gulf War. 1995, government admits it offered Japanese war criminals and scientists who had performed human medical experiments and salaries and immunity from prosecution in exchange for data on biological warfare research. In 1995, Dr. Garth Nicholson uncovers evidence that biological agents used in the Gulf War had been manufactured in Houston, Texas, and Boca Raton, Florida, and tested on prisoners in Texas Department of Corrections. And in third, October 1995, President Clinton publicly apologized to thousands of people who became MK Ultra and other mind control experimental programs. What compensation did they get? None. 1996, Department of Defense admits that Desert Storm soldiers were exposed to chemical agents. And that's all, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I know y'all didn't enjoy hearing what's been done, but yeah, that's all non-consensual experiments done starting in 1931. So anyway, God bless y'all. I hope y'all have a good day. I'll probably do another video on Monday because I'm taking the day off tomorrow. But anyway, God bless y'all. I hope y'all are doing okay. And I'm burning up in here. So please pray for me. Thanks.